here. But you've got to have the legs to do a move like that. Going across on the climb, joining the leaders that have been in front for a long, long way today. Now he's got some strong people to help him here. Pavel Tonkov, for example. The Latvian rider who's setting the pace down there, Heinz Imbuden. 50 kilometers from the finish. And the group reforming, and that was Berzin right at the head of them. But this, don't forget, is not the group. This is the chase group all forming around him. Now Berzin's gone back here for further instructions after the first attack has only partly succeeded. And these are the two leaders. Piccoli is beginning to show himself as a good bike rider. He's never won a race, by the way, since he turned professional back in 1993. He's enjoying his day out in the Giro today. There's one of the dreaded tunnels. We can't go through, we'd lose our pictures. But in fact, they are the tunnels the riders fear most. They're totally unlit, and when you go into those tunnels with your sunglasses on, and then I should imagine you are frightened to death. Furlan launching an attack again. The Gawies putting in one more move. Berzin waiting just as long as he can here. The Mapei riders are now around him. And this looks like Nelson Rodriguez, the Colombians and the Spanish riders coming into their own in the Dolomites. Buena Hora and Frattini is the Gawies rider. Well, if you try and you win, that's one thing, but it's nice to see at least Gawies riders are trying to take on Tony Rominger, who has appeared to be such a solid leader. Now we're looking at Frattini here. Francesco Frattini. Rominger still has some teammates able to pull that race along, while the Gawies just about throwing everything they can at him today. They are launching one attack after another. Over the top and down the other side once more. And Francesco Frattini is trying to draw the sting once more of the Mapei riders. There's an uphill finish today in Lenzerheide, which, don't forget, is in Switzerland, which is where we are right now. The riders crossing the borders today at something like 40 miles covered. And the Swiss-style chalets, and the first people in Switzerland here to witness those two. We'll see Piccoli and Guerini. Ugrumov again digging deep and keeping the rhythm high. And Rincon back in the frame as well. Rincon now a contender for a high overall finish, so he won't be allowed too much leeway to get clear again like he did the last 2 days. And Berzin still feeling extremely frisky, but it looks as though Rominger is now feeling he's getting control of this situation. Berzin putting down yet another attack since he got swept up, and Rominger seemingly pedaling again that low gear, sits right back on the saddle and just tries to conserve energy while control the breakaways. But the breakaways are going to continue. Ugrumov comes, Rominger's paying attention. Ugrumov digs very, very deep indeed, and so too does Tony Rominger. This is wonderful racing. Although I doubt whether Rominger might agree. Rominger gets onto the back wheel now of Ugrumov. Rincon comes up, so too does Berzin. The other rider here is Claudio Chiappucci, and also Heinz Imbuden in that red Refin jersey. And I think that's about it. Something like 6 riders now in this front group. Gawies again have the vast majority with their 2 top men here. And Rominger is now on his own. All of the Mapei boys have fallen out of it. And what a tough tour they are having, trying to nurse their leader. Rominger, though, has always got that nice feeling of having the big time advantage over the rest. He can afford, if he cracks, just to hang on and not lose too much. He's over 3 minutes in the lead. Pressure eased off slightly again. These are the 6 riders heading up towards the finish. Rincon in yellow, Imbuden in red. Heinz Imbuden having a very good last few days in this race. And in fact, having said that, here he goes now, Imbuden having a little go. Rapidly being joined at the back. Claudio Chiappucci comes up at a gallop. But very often a habit of Claudio to look over his shoulder when he attacks. I don't know whether it's just to have a smile at the rest while they chase him, or whether to see exactly where they are. But the two riders, while we've watched what has certainly been the best part of the race, the counter-attacks behind, these two riders are staying well clear. There's still about a minute and a half clear as Piccoli is going to finish off a marvellous day out here and take his first ever victory in his professional career in 2 years. He gets the victory, consolidates his lead in the King of the Mountains over Guarini. Frattini went away, they never counted his move, and that was on the cards too. He wasn't the marked man. He comes home in third place and takes it. 1:23 was the gap. Now this is the sprint now. Tocznik is leading it out. So Georg Tocznik also had a great time in the Dolomites, which are now coming to an end as he sprints home in Switzerland. No, he doesn't, because gone over the top of him now is Francois Simon, and Simon ahead of Zehner, Tocznik, Imboden on the line. So they got up in the very late closing kilometres of the climb, and dropping away from the front rank was Chiappucci and Rincon. But it all changed. The man who's in green as the King of the Mountains and the stage winner is now Mariano Piccoli. He's never been on the podium before. As a winner, that is, and let's just have a quick look at the result. There it is, and significantly, the other boys coming in 2 minutes and 6 seconds back. And the rider's not too far away from Milan now as we move on to the 16th stage, 224 kilometres. Just the one big climb early on, the Giulia Pass. Then we go downhill to Treviglio, and that is the home, by the way, of the Bianchi bicycle, and the race, in fact, finishing outside the bicycle factory. So, no real challenge downhill. The Dolomites are now behind the riders. The overall situation, Rominger leading by 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Berzin is third, and Chiappucci is now in fourth position. He's ridden a very solid race this year, Claudio Chiappucci, but he's found 3 rather tough men ahead of him. And again, the Mercatoni Uno riders are at the head of affairs, but not for Mario Cipollini this time, indeed for their other sprinter, Martinello, because Cipollini abandoned the Tour before the mountains begun. So the sprint coming up now towards the end, and we've got Giovanni Lombardi, who's trying to start the sprint as well, and the pink jersey is also in there, the points leaders jersey, Jan Zverada. This is going to be quite a tussle here as they come down towards the sprint. Giovanni Lombardi is the rider who's got himself up into second place. He was the points champion, by the way, in the 1992 Olympic Games. And now he's following the wheel of the other team sprinter. Fidanza's moved out. There was a fend off there by Manzoni, and then there was a counter-attack on a hook from Lombardi. I would think that both of those riders will be disqualified, but Lombardi has gone across the line first. Now watch this first of all, as the blue meets the yellow, and the arm comes out there from Manzoni and pushes Lombardi away. Then Manzoni begins the sprint again and heads towards the barriers, and this is where Lombardi takes him into the barriers and leans on him. So I would think that Lombardi, had he not retaliated, would have kept that stage victory, but instead it's going to go to Citero, who's coming through nearest the camera. The other two riders have been declassed. So another controversial sprint finish, and as Fidanza swings away, there's the hand clearly seen there from Mariano Manzoni as he tries to hold off Giovanni Lombardi, and then Lombardi, taking offence to that, decides to go and have a go at him as he pushes him towards the barriers, then straightens up for the finish. And if he hadn't have made that move, then I think Giovanni Lombardi would have been given the result. Instead, it's gone to the rider on the right, Giuseppe Citerio. The overall leader is Tony Rominger, while the result is not so good for the Champagne. Lombardi has been declassed, and so too as Manzoni in third. So Citerio the winner, Pagnin is up into second. 6 stages left to go, and the last and most important final time trial, 43 kilometres this. It's a mountain time trial. The rider's going from Chinate to Selvigno Aviatico, and it goes up to 962 metres. Evgeni Berzin last year was in pink. This year he's still trying to work out how he can improve on his current third place overall. He's 3 minutes and 29 seconds behind Tony Rominger, but more importantly, of course, he is only 15 seconds behind his teammate Piotr Ugrumov, and that, I'm sure, is uppermost in his mind. And starting with a reasonable steady speed here, because this is a very tough finish to the time trial sections of this year's Giro d'Italia, especially at the end. Tony Rominger, who has opted, by the way, to have 26-inch wheels fitted to his bike. Now, the last time he did that was in the Tour de France almost a year ago. And this is Piotr Ugrumov, who is currently lying second overall in the race, 3 minutes and 14 seconds down. He has finished previously second overall. That was to the great Miguel Indurain. So Rominger is setting the trend, and indeed is setting the time. Zenin Jaskula has gone the fastest through this check, and you can see now that Evgeni Berzin is living up to his reputation. He's going to challenge Jaskula, and in fact he's gone through with the new best time, almost 15 seconds quicker. Now, Tony Rominger hasn't reached that point yet, of course. He's riding some 6 minutes behind on the road, and Ugrumov is in front of him. Ugrumov now. Jaskula is already on the board, which means that Ugrumov is now behind Berzin, and behind by almost 10 seconds. If he continues to lose at that rate, then he will slip out of second place overall in this year's event, and Berzin will be back up there. So the battle between the two Gabriel's boys continues, and I don't think Tony Rominger minds a bit. This rider well settled into his pace now. Still to come to the first check. Onto the climb. Evgeni Berzin still looking very, very strong indeed. Now let's see how Rominger compares to Berzin. Rominger the best by almost more than half a minute, in fact. 33 seconds now. So Tony Rominger is out today to increase his lead even more in this year's race. And so far his average speed is 25 miles an hour despite the climbs. They've gone over the top of the Col de Gallo, and he really is riding well. Berzin now, though, is digging deep, and I think he's being pulled by the fact he wants to get ahead of Piotr Ugrumov. He knows he's got to do it today, because time gained today, he will try not to lose in what few stages remain, and no real big challenges either. He knows it, and Ugrumov knows it. And here now Berzin comes up to the finish, and he's going to put the best time on the board. Casagrande may have lost his high overall finish in this race, but even so, he's taken over the podium from Jaskula at the moment with the best time, 1:9:10.7. Berzin's going to reshape that as he crosses the line very, very shortly. He'll be around 1 hour, 7 minutes and 40 seconds when he comes up to the line. That's a great time, a minute 32 better than Casagrande, and that will be a real time to beat now. So we've just got two riders to finish, and they're both out on the course, and this is the man who's making his steady ascension up towards the top of the finishing line, and Ugrumov is almost there. Now Ugrumov tied on time almost to the same 1/10 of a second in the last time trial. I think it's going to be a little bit different now. He started out the day second overall. He's going to lose that second place because Casagrande is the time on the board now. He's behind Berzin. He's going to beat Casagrande's time. He's going to have to be satisfied with second, and overall he'll be down to third. 1 hour, 8 minutes to 24 seconds slower than Evgeni Berzin, his teammate. There's still a good race going there. And the arrival of Tony Rominger, and just look at the clock here. Tony Rominger has profited all the way. Those smaller wheels, the streamlined position has helped him to climb all the way to the line. And 1:38 the beating. This man is having indurain margins in this year's Giro d'Italia. There's the result, the four-stage win for Tony Rominger, a minute 39 ahead of Berzin, 2:03 in front of Ugrumov. Casagrande again come good with fourth, but overall, Casagrande nowhere to be seen. Rominger, though, is now 5 minutes 8 ahead of Berzin. Ugrumov, though, still has a chance, perhaps even today, on this 18th stage of 221 kilometres to make amends. The riders now going from Sudello to Satuario Vicoforte. It's a ride, as I say, of 221 kilometres. The riders now passing through their 3,000th kilometre of this year's Giro d'Italia. And a small group getting away, and the rain has returned just as it was in the opening few days of the race. This group 1 minute 16 ahead. And they are Giuseppe Guerini on the far side and Denis Zanetta, a first-year professional, nearest the camera. Well, yesterday, Tony Rominger celebrated his 100th win as a professional, and there's no chance now because they're almost a quarter of an hour behind. This was the remnant of a breakaway of some 18 riders that went clear in atrocious conditions after 96 kilometres covered, and they are surviving to fight out the finish. Now, Guerini is on the back of this group. He's been beaten already in the last 3 days, don't forget, into second place, and he's never won a stage of the Giro, while Zanetta is a first-year professional. He's never won a race here either, and now the sprint is on between the two of them, and the rain coming down as heavy as ever as they fight in the twilight, but it looks as though it's going to be a victory, or is it for Zanetta? Yes, he looks confident enough, and Guerini absolutely furious with himself. He can't believe he's second again. And a little bit of a lead here in the sprint for third place. It's Sergei Uchikov of the Polti team who is hanging on. This is the remnants of the breakaway away for much of the day. Now this, believe it or not, is the main field. Tony Rominger, you can just pick him out there. I don't know what he's doing wearing his sunglasses, because as you can see, the rain is absolutely torrential. And the main field today are pottering along. They are over 15 minutes behind as they come up to the finish. The clock is still counting, and as they cross the line, it is going to be 15 minutes and 25 seconds. There's the happy man of the day, 25 years old, Denis Zanetta, a new professional. He gets the win. And in the runner-up position was Guarini yet again, Uchikov third, and Vladimir Pulnikov fourth. Whatever happened to him in this year's Giro? And as we look now at the map of the stage which takes the riders into Briançon in France, 202 kilometres over the high spot of the race, the Col d'Agnello at 2,748 metres. There it is. The rumour is it's snowing heavily and the race could well be in danger of cancellation before reaching the summit of that climb. Conditions here now are quite atrocious, and it's always a risk the Tour of Italy takes being run in the month of June, because of course the snows very often are still here. And this is in fact the situation on the climb of the Col d'Agnello, and a number of vehicles buried in fact by an avalanche. And this is a look back at what has happened here, as the vehicles going up for television have become totally blocked and the chains no use at all. And the understanding is that a number of vehicles have been buried, but as far as we know, nobody has been killed, although people have been injured up there on the mountain. As a result, the race is going to be finished at the point of the Inter-Giro sprint, which is some 10 kilometres onto the climb of the Col d'Agnello, and that's where the stage will end. The riders have in fact only been told during the race, and in the breakaway now is Pascal Richard here at the head of affairs. Just behind him is the Refin rider Rodolfo Massi, and Nelson Rodriguez, the little Colombian climber, is in the action again. Well, there's a shock for him now because he's not going up to the 9,015 feet point of this climb. The race will finish halfway up it, but they're in the breakaway and they're in the last kilometre and nobody's going to catch them now. Well, conditions absolutely atrocious on the gateway to France, because that's what the mountain is, and they're not going to see the top of it, because after the race ends they will go round by autoroute and into the town of Briançon for tomorrow's stage. And this is Massi just checking over his shoulder to see if anybody is coming up. They've been riding for just around about 4 hours on the climb, and the other two riders are Richard and Rodriguez. Now it's Bueno Hora, he's here somewhere. Oh, there he is. He's just popped straight through from nowhere. They knew he was coming, and Hernan Bueno Hora has simply flown by them, and they've gone for him now. And in fact, Rodriguez reaching for the gear levers there as he tries to get onto the wheel of Rodolfo Massi, and the rider gripping very, very quickly indeed. A man who always seems to ride well in bad conditions is Pascal Richard. And they've got onto Bueno Hora. Everybody else that matters is over a minute back, and you can go back a long way to the real men who matter in this year's Giro d'Italia. The clock just tripped over 4 hours in the saddle. The riders only being told about the finish change within the final hours. So you see, they haven't had much warning at all. These are the fortunate ones. And it was a great effort by Bueno Hora, but he's paying for it now as he drops away from the action. And now it looks as though Massi is opening up the sprint here. Pascal Richard in second place. Rodriguez so often in the hunt for the finish, but can't finish it off with a big sprint. He falls away now as Richard gets his second stage win of this year's Giro. A controversial one though it will be, not from the racing point of view, but indeed a little bit of organisational chaos. The Avalanche has blocked the road, and the workers here trying to make sure that people aren't buried in the snow. And indeed, they're most concerned exactly about the whereabouts of one of the members of the organisation here, Franco Carbagnaghi, and his son, because they're believed to be under the avalanche. The road was clear, but the snow started to fall again, and as a result of that, an avalanche came, and between the lead cars going over, the advanced caravan, if you like, of the Giro d'Italia, and the main envelope of the race itself. So this has happened very, very late on, and as you can see, a lot of help quickly at hand. The men with the long, thin poles trying to strike the roof of Mr. Carbagnaghi's car, I would imagine. But as far as we know, he is in there somewhere. But I am able to say, as these are pictures taken earlier, that in fact Mr. Carbagnaghi and his son were rescued unhurt. So the snows are now behind us as the riders have gone around the mountain to Briançon for a 203 kilometres 20th stage to Gressenay-Saint-Jean. And now this is a long attack by Sergei Uchikov, the Ukrainian rider, and on the Polti team, and every year this young man does seem to improve tremendously. A small league group here as they head up towards the finish of Gressonnet. The riders today reaching 3,500 kilometers pedaled. They're not too far ahead, and the field down there nicely grouped together again. Nobody missing from the overall leaderboard. Tony Rominger still well in control as we now pass the 6 kilometers to go to the finish. Now, can Uchikov hang on to this lead? He's certainly not very far ahead of those who are chasing him. The main field is only about a minute behind, and we've got riders in between. There's the pink jersey. And behind him, Evgeni Berzin. This is the move up on the mountain. It looks as though Massimo Girotto has had enough. He's sagged off for there as they try to bring back the man who's setting the pace. And here he is, Sergei Uchikov from the Ukraine. And further down, less than a minute behind now, the yellow jersey here of the Once rider Oliveira Rincon. Rincon is now 5th overall at the moment, but he's 10 minutes and 21 seconds behind Tony Rominger. He'll hope to improve on that because he could reach Claudio Chiappucci with a good effort. Chiappucci is 1 place ahead of him on the overall. That's Ugrumov trying to make ground again, because remember, Ugrumov now displaced by Evgeni Berzin in the overall race for the runner-up position. Berzin has countered the move on the right of our picture in that unfamiliar all-blue jersey because he is wearing the leader's colours there of the Giro sprint competition. But in fact, Tony Rominger set to make a clean sweep of all the competition in this year's Giro. And Massimo Girotto falls away even further now as Berzin goes through on the wheel of Oliveira Rincon, anxious not to allow his teammate Piotr Ugrumov any way at all of gaining time on him now. There's only a few seconds separating these two riders from the Gavis team overall, and Berzin knows he can't afford to lose even a handful of seconds. And Ugrumov wants some help from Rincon and tells him so, but Rincon doesn't seem able or indeed willing to go through. He's looked across at Berzin, and then he points at Berzin, he points at Rincon, and he's saying something like, look, they're not very far behind, and he's telling him again, but Rincon, well, I'm not sure whether Rincon speaks much Latvian, and so he's just sitting there looking at him. But how long is it since we've seen such an infight between two teammates in the major tour, and the leader, Tony Rominger, taking a back seat further down the mountain, because now we've got Ugrumov attacking. These two starting the day separated by just 9 seconds in the overall classification. Berzin having a little bit of trouble here to hang on to Ugrumov. Rincon again following the wheels, back to the chase behind, and the pink jersey himself, Rominger, is now doing the majority of the work. Rodriguez up into 2nd place. Just behind him too there you can see the white jersey of Claudio Chiappucci. And so Ugrumov caught, has gone into the back seat. A little bit frustrated here, Piotr Ugrumov, because what he's saying is, I'm doing the attacking and you're just following, and that's exactly what Berzin is doing again. Well, there's going to be no love lost at all between these two when they get to the finish. Berzin is saying, I'm on 2nd place overall. If you want to beat me, try and drop me. And so that is a tremendous battle, I have to say, between the Gavis riders, and Rominger is well out of it because he's done all the racing he needs to do to win this year's Giro d'Italia. Now, this looks to me as though we've got Pascal Richard trying to bridge the gap up to the leaders. 3 light leaders. Don't forget Uchikov is up here, and there he is. That's Pascal Richard with him. So they're ahead. We are now closing down. The clock is counting down the gap from the 2 leaders to these, the 3 chasers. And Ugrumov seems unable to get rid of Berzin. Now, what will Uchikov do with Pascal Richard, the winner of 2 stages, the latest coming yesterday at the foot of the Col d'Agnello? And in fact, the answer is he's going to go for a long one, and Sergei Uchikov has gone clear. Richard a little bit slow to react there. He got caught completely off guard, and I think Uchikov's done enough. In fact, the towel has gone in for Pascal Richard. The tactic paid brilliantly. He hit him at exactly the right moment, and had he not done that, almost certainly Richard would have taken his stage win number 3. 8 seconds have passed by, and into view comes Richard, followed by Ugrumov, Berzin and Rincon. And Chiappucci brings the rest of the race, Tonkov, Rominger over the line. So, a first ever stage win for Sergei Uchikov from the Ukraine, and Polti will be very happy about that. And a great win for him. and one he's going to cherish. He took it so well, hitting Pascal Richard exactly the moment when he wasn't paying attention, and he should have been. But it will do nothing to the overall classification, of course. Tony Rominger, virtually a day off for him today, retains 4 minutes 50 seconds. There's the result of the stage, a 5-second win over Richard, 8 seconds over the battling threesome, and the rest coming in just after that. The penultimate stage of the Giro, 190 kilometres, Pont Saint-Martin to Luigno. And it's a ride with a very nasty sting in the tail today, and the weather is also atrocious. Overnight, by the way, the manager of Gay Wiz has given a big talking to Evgeni Berzin and Piotr Ugrumov, still second and third in the race, for attacking one another, and perhaps today peace will reign. This is the main part of the race as they tackle the climb of the Passo Cuvignoni for the second and last time. It's a group which contains all of the favourites now, and still the attacks are coming. Evgeni Berzin is the man causing the problem. And the rain, as you can see, is back with us in determined fashion here in the Giro d'Italia, and Tony Rominger also now having to counter the move. It's the 25th birthday today of Evgeni, and he's on the attack once again. This little man seems insatiable this year, very proud of the fact he won the race last year, the first ever win by a Russian rider. So he still carries that blue jersey of the intermediate sprint leader in the Giro d'Italia, but of course Tony Rominger leads in that competition as well. He can only wear one jersey, and that's the pink, although I would think in the conditions today he would prefer to wear two. And this is the absolute cream of this year's Giro d'Italia, the leader Rominger. You've got Berzin out in front, Ugrumov, Chiappucci, Rincon, Tonkov, Zaina. All of those riders are here now. In fact, the only man missing is Claudio Chiappucci in 4th place overall. And speak of the devil, and that's what he calls himself, here he comes. So Chiappucci joins the leaders now. The top 7 riders in this year's Giro are now commanding the first 7 places on the road, despite these atrocious conditions. There is Evgeni Berzin. He's decided to desist and wait for the chase, and Rominger is right there as well. Setting the pace, Enrico Zaina and Claudio Chiappucci. Chiappucci's had a great tour, and 525 metres is the altitude here. And in fact, missing from this group is Evgeni Berzin. I think he slipped away, and here he is. So Berzin has gone once more. He waited till they got all around him, and then he went again, determined to have a happy birthday today for sure, despite the weather conditions. And Berzin is clear. So whether or not they've settled their differences, there's no doubt that the Gay Wiz rider Evgeni Berzin is going to win the stage. So last year's champion of the Giro at least will get one stage win on the record books this year. So Berzin, and he's only a few seconds ahead of the race here, comes home in just over 5 hours. He gets the victory. He's going to make the most of that. And looking down the road there, that attack came as a big surprise, and it was worth it. And Chiappucci has got away from the rest here. Chiappucci's got away and takes 2nd place, 3rd place. Another one for Carrera. Zina gets it there from Tonkov and Ugrumov. But Ugrumov finishing only 5th and conceding 25 seconds today to Evgeni Berzin. And that certainly, with 1 day to go, will make sure last year's Tour winner will finish 2nd now when the race goes to Milan. So the winner's podium at last for last year's winner. He paid many visits here last year. Every day he got a new race leader's pink jersey, but this time it stays very firmly on the shoulders of Tony Rominger. He leads Berzin by 4 minutes and 13 seconds. The stage result there, and a great result there. In fact, they gave Pavel Tonkov 3rd place in the end, just pipping Zaina right on the line. And so to the final stage of this year's Giro d'Italia, 148 kilometres, the road into Milano. And there is the beautiful city itself, one of the prettiest cities in the world. And finally, the Giro d'Italia heading back home. And it's heading home with a Swiss winner, only the 3rd Swiss victory in the history of this event. And Tony Rominger now, having held on to that race lead ever since the Day 2 time trial, can now expect a glorious arrival here in the city of Milan. A reminder of the overall situation after 94 hours of racing: Berzin, Ugrumov, Kiepucci, Rincon. That was the order as they come now towards the end of the final stage of this year's race. A day surely for the sprinters once again. Remember that Giovanni Lombardi, disqualified once, is now trying to get himself back into a position to make amends this time out as they swing. Oh, and it was a very, very wide sweep indeed, and a lot of dirty looks being passed around the race bunch there at the time. But Manzoni and Martinello are back in the thick of this one now, and we've got Manzoni leading out now in the centre of our picture, but Lombardi is coming again. The two riders who clashed a few days ago are back at the front, and this time, no doubt about it, Giovanni Lombardi brings the Tour of Italy to a close with a very clean and definitive victory ahead of Mariano Manzoni and Silvio Martinelli in third place. But these were the three men of the 78th Giro, and two of them from Gay Wiz who battled out against each other almost as much as they did so against Tony Rominger. The result of the stage first: Lombardi ahead of Manzoni, Martinello, Pelliconi and Citerio. But the result overall: Tony Rominger becomes the third Swiss rider to win the Tour of Italy. He does it by 4 minutes and 13 seconds. He in fact now follows in the footsteps, or is it the wheel tracks, of Hugo Coblet in 1950, Carlo Carici in 1954. This was an extraordinary Giro d'Italia, and despite the apparent domination of one Tony Rominger, it was a great race. Until the next time, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye.